Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So we're just checking out the space weather to see how things are going because we went through quite a peak back there.
Oh my gosh, we had a crazy few days. Everybody had a crazy few days.
And everybody's reacting to the energies differently. So when you look at that KP index back at November 4th, we see now we're relatively calm. I mean, the KP is still looking at a 4 right now. But, we were up to a 7 and some intense energies. And you got to keep in mind, these are transformative energies. I know there were questions out there. Somebody said, all this radiation going to make us sick. Well, I think that the powers that be want you afraid of the sun. They want you lathering things all over your body, covering your eyes, and terrified of the sun. But that's because the sun is a path to freedom.
Well,
it's giving us energy. It's giving us information.
Yeah. Information changes our DNA, gives us new downloads, new uploads, just a new way of being.
Yes, it is the path out of the Kali Yuga. And again, the Kali Yuga is a term. It just basically means dark age, so to speak, or we could translate it even as an evil age, an age of unenlightenment. And that is where we have been, but that is where we're going to be leaving in the, it's a term
in the
that
now,
we use.
Near future-ish, sort of.
Well, when you look in your rear view mirror, we're going to leave it in the dust.
Yeah, let's do that.
And, it makes me want to jump to almost one of the last things we're going to talk about when we talk about dust. So here we see CIA director dispatched to Moscow to warn Russia over troop buildup near the Ukraine. Well, what exactly is going on here? Because the Ukraine was saying, well, there isn't really a buildup. Russia was saying there's not a buildup, but they did admit they had 90,000 troops there doing an exercise and just happened to leave them there.
Just happened to do that.
Again, it's how you sell things. This world is all about sales. And here we go. Republicans ask number 46 to deploy U.S. troops near the Ukraine to arm Kiev to deter a Russian invasion. The Russian embassy in Washington expressed vexation over the expression of concern among U.S. officials regarding the movement of Russian troops inside the country's own borders. Last week, U.S. media falsely reported on the alleged buildup of Russian forces near Ukraine. Ukraine, again, breadbasket of Europe. It's a very, very productive area with a lot of black soil, rich, fertile black soil. And as we talked about, there was a man-made cataclysm there that caused the starvation of, anywhere from maybe 5 to 10 million people, and it didn't have to happen. Absolute horrible thing. Right. Absolutely horrible. And, again, this is the sad part of this dark age, because there's no reason for any of this. When you have billionaires with enough power and energy to alleviate any hunger on the planet, and they don't have the heart, compassion, and love to do so, it just shows you we're living in an age of unenlightenment.
We are, and it's really unfair, but then again, that's why we're all here. That's why we are all starseeds. Whoever is listening to this channel, we've been given a mission to slowly but surely wake other people up, because when we do have the majority, that's when things start to change.
And they will change, and more are waking up all the time. And again, this is the most important thing, is to keep waking up others until those that are awakened are eventually the majority. And we're going to have to get outside of their system. But then it's kind of, in some ways, most definitely not fair, where you have them in control. They control the spin, the narrative, the sales on every single topic that we're talking about and looking at. The spin, and there was, news, the no spin zone. Mm-hmm. The no spin zone's full of spin too. Everything is full of spin. This is part of this whole system that has to go bye-bye. It has to go bye-bye. And as the Galactics were saying, get ready, please, please, please get as ready as you can, because the supply chain is going to come to a grinding halt. And yet it has to, because we have to get out of the system. We have to make the system insignificant to us, those that are awake to what's really going on. And yesterday we were trying to title the video, and everything we did, it just kept demonetizing it. So we learned, well, we can't say that word in the title. We can't say this word in the title. Some words you can't, you got to be careful if you say just the word system.
Yeah, I think it was something to do with the word system. It's strange.
So, we just had to do, well, it's a situational update, because we can't tell you exactly. We can't describe what's in there. What's in there passed the AI test, but yet the title giving you a description of what's in there didn't pass it, no matter how many times we tried. I had it completely uploaded, deleted it, started all over from scratch again, because it wasn't going to allow us to monetize it. And, at this point in time, you have to keep preparing, and we have to keep preparing too, to get ourselves to the point where we can be out of the system. And then you have the craziness, the insanity that is the leadership of this planet, because it is insanity. These nonstop, forever wars that are all about just, again, building the profits, guaranteeing more control, continued control. These beings that are in control, unfortunately, they're the type of beings that are not expressing the love that comes from Source, God with the big G, and so many other benevolent beings. These beings, they're the spoiled little brats that, if they can't have it their way, they're just going to destroy everything. They're gonna, they're gonna wreck their Lincoln Log castle
and torch it,
and then light it on fire.
Yes.
That's
nobody's going to enjoy it. Absolutely nobody.
Exactly. And so when things are not going their way, you always got to say, okay, they're going to go to a plan B.
Yeah.
In a spoiled brat manner. And, this is always a plan B. WAR is always plan B. Now, this is curious, but not really. New Zealand Prime Minister refuses to say if China is an ally or an adversary, and abstains from calling the U.S. leading democracy. Why? I think a picture says a million words. As we've talked about it, the power structure is already in place. The Trojan horses, not only have they entered the building, they've already unloaded the enemy within the gates. And who's really in control of some of these countries? Might just be the person on the right there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the power brokers that control the whole entire chessboard are moving all the pieces. So we keep that in mind. But again, there is a power structure that they like and they want. And when we look to the fine dining ware country, there's no civil liberties, and there's no even attempt to make it look really like there's any sort of freedoms. That makes life a lot easier, doesn't it, for the power brokers?
It sure does. It makes it really easy.
Yeah. So, this is a sign of the times. And by the way, look at Australia and New Zealand, as far as leading the way with the LOCK down. There's a reason for that. And again, they are so close distance-wise to this new global superpower that obviously they'd be some of the first ones to be completely traded.
Right.
And, also when we look at this sheer size of Australia, how few people are living in it. Australia is almost the size of the entirety of the U.S., with, not too far off from the population of Texas. So if you took the entire state of Texas, which I've traveled through Texas so many times, Cindy has too. There's a lot of nothing out there.
Oh, yeah.
There's a ton of nothing out there. Now spread all the people out throughout the entirety of the entire country of the USA Do you know how many troops you could hide in that country? How many supplies you could get, hide in that country? You could probably have war games going on there that you wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, sure could. No, without a problem.
Now, if you get leadership, like the lady on the left there, that understands the bigger picture, everybody in the know, they're told to just shh, shh, shh.
Well, they're told to shush, and they do, as long as they're, they get something in return, and it's probably whatever they want in return, so they just do.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it's a nice little island somewhere.
Something like that.
That's kind of the way the system works, isn't that kind of what?
A little bit of bribery, a little bit of competition.
Well, no, let's not call it bribery. Let's call it lobbying. Let's use official terms now.
I'm sorry, lobbying.
Yes. 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but it's the way you portray it, right?
It's not what you say; it's in the tone of voice.
When you dress up a pig, it's still a pig.
It is.
But hey, it's amazing. A little lipstick can do.
Oh wow, yeah. Yep.
And big question: why is the Pentagon equipping F-35's with NUKESs? F-35's are fighters. F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is newly certified to carry NUKESs, in particular the B-61-12. I had never heard of something like this. I've never heard of putting a NUKE on a fighter, but when you look at the power level, these weapons can be as low as 0.3 kilotons, right? The equivalent of 300 tons of TNT. So what we're talking about is what has been categorized as bunker buster. However, they can carry up to 50 kilotons. And just to give you for instance, the absolute atrocities that were Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In August 6, 1945, the U.S. dropped an NUKE on Hiroshima, and that bomb was known as Little Boy. And this exploded with about 13 kilotons of force. Between 90,000 and 166,000 people believed to have died in a 4-month period following the explosion. The U.S. Department of Energy estimated that after 5 years, perhaps 200,000 or more fatalities as a result of the bombing. And so that was 13 kilotons. And then Nagasaki was basically 21 kilotons. And, this is one of the most horrible things in modern times that has fallen on the planet. So when we look back to what they're putting on an F-35, it could hold up to 50 kilotons. That's a lot. That is on a fighter. Mm-hmm. That sounds insane.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it does.
It sounds like insanity. Now, this is something that number 45, the previous administration, had broken off from agreements that were agreements on how small you can make these weapons. There had to be a certain threshold that you could not go under, because you start to blur classifications. And we asked the Galactics, because the Galactics said they would not allow an all-out NUKE-WAR. And we asked them, well, what's the threshold? And they said basically they'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But we've already gotten that those experimental explosions off the coast of Florida were basically an attempt to start something like that. And it was stopped by the Galactic Federation, who is a defensive energy and entity. They're defensive. They're not offensive-minded. So if you do have people that are channeling, and I know there were some channelers out there that were saying that our soldiers are working side by side with the G-Fed, liberating the moon, liberating Mars, and stuff like that. That's not true. It's just not the case. These beings are up on fifth density, and they're of a much more unity consciousness point of view than we are by far. And they're not offensive in nature. They operate on a defensive paradigm because they understand the oneness of all things.
Right, and they're not going to be taking sides, especially in that way, you know. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, there was something that came out from some channelers that were exactly the opposite of the reality. But then again, there are a lot out there that are really, unfortunately, channeling the alphabet soups. And the alphabet soups are under the control of the dark side that is on the planet and still is in control of the planet, to as far as in the 3D sense, even though everything is shifting. And ultimately, you could view it as they've lost already, because if we're talking about the timeless aspect of all things and time being an illusion, yeah, they are going to lose without a doubt. They just want to keep as many people with them as possible. That's their whole big agenda. And that means through the reincarnation cycle. So the Federal Appeals Court blocks number 46's You Know What Date for Men. The big company Date for Men was blocked. And so here we see Texas Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton tweeted Saturday, "Yesterday I sued the number 46 administration over its unlawful OSHA, Date for Men. We won just this morning, citing grave statutory and constitutional issues. The fight is not over. It has only just begun." But yes, so again, this is a case where we need to all share our opinions. And we must, again, have the strength to be a unique individual. We don't have to be sheep just being herded into a pen. We can break off and do our own thing. When we could also say, no, we're not going along with this, and speak up loudly.
And use our individuality to do so. Use our creative energy to speak up and express ourselves. And, sky's the limit. That can look like anything. Just reach into your heart and find out how are you going to express your opinion, and just do it. Be you.
We talked about these sleepy cellular units that were out there, that were being activated in many different ways, and it might not be exactly what you think. We might not be looking at a replay of the 11th of September of 2001. It could look very differently. And we got that these units are going to be doing things that are disruptive, but also testing out different technologies. And that's what we got from the guides here, as far as this was a test of certain technologies, as we see at least 8 lost, 300 injured after a mysterious mass casualty incident at a concert. And, this was just absolutely bizarre and craziness. It says somebody in the crowd went crazy and began injecting people with some sort of drug, which caused panic and then a surge. Unfortunately, a 10-year-old is one of those that were among them. Cardiac arrest. Think about that. Cardiac arrest. There's videos here, which we won't play, but we'll give you the link. This is off of Zero Hedge. This is being talked about everywhere. So much going on with the heart chakra, guys. This is all about the heart chakra. And the human heart chakra is enlarging. Why? It's in preparation for getting out of this dark age, which has been controlled by fear, greed, jealousy, envy, all those negative energies. And we're coming to a Christ consciousness place where it's heart-centered living, heart-centered being. It's all about the heart center. And conversely, we've seen all these athletes that have had heart attacks, young kids, football teams, basketball teams, baseball teams, soccer teams, all sorts of young athletic people in the prime of their life. I mean, coming into their own and having issues with the heart, and this is a video of somebody in a gym that was starting to have heart issues out of the blue. Never had heart issues before. And, interesting how these people over at that concert had heart issues. It's just very curious, is it not? And here we have number 46 hailing the infrastructure win as a monumental step forward. Yeah, that huge mega bill making its way through. And, while we might view it as infrastructure, it's not all that's in there. When you start looking at all the things that are always put in these bills, and you wonder, why is something else in there that doesn't have anything to do with infrastructure? Well, in some ways it might, because like the IRS is going to double in size.
Mm-hmm.
The IRS is hiring 87,000 new agents. That's about the size that it currently is. They're doubling the IRS. Why? Because they're going to come after every single American taxpayer to get every single dime that they can.
Yeah, so once again, this just tells me that, who's in charge? Who's in charge? You really got to ask yourself. We have to protect ourselves. It's up to us. It's not up to somebody else. We're the ones we're waiting for. So we need to take control. Baby steps out of the system wherever you can. Explore, look around you, see what you can do that helps drop you out of the system, even just a little bit.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, how does this person in purple, how are they still there?
Right, how are they still
How
there?
are they still there?
It just boggles the mind if somebody else is in charge, and I keep hearing that. Don't worry, we've got this. How is this happening?
Yeah, it's, yeah, sure, there is stuff for roads and bridges and stuff, and the grid, and it goes on and on and on. But then you look at the IRS agents, and there's always other things in the bill. There's always other power grabs in the bill, too. New legislation makes it through that usually makes, big government much, much bigger, Big Brother much, much more powerful, and takes power away from all the rest of us. And, you had a bunch of those on the right jumping over here, and as we've talked about, it's it's all basically about the controllers, because again, they call it lobbying. We could call it something else, as we've talked about, BRIBERY, right?
Yeah.
What's really the difference here? And then how do you have people that are in there for basically life, entrenched in there for life? It's a joke. And when do we get to the point where people say, well, so-and-so's NP certainly doesn't speak for me. I don't want this, or I don't want that. And then say, I'm not going to take part in it. Well, that's where the 87,000 IRS agents come in. That's a lot of people to go knocking on doors.
Yes, it is.
And by the way, number 46 sent 70 secret night flights of migrants from the border to Florida. 70. This was released. So they're flooding them into certain states. And again, I shared with you guys the vision I had. And at that time, when I first had the vision, I was in South Carolina, that in particular the vision of Florida, because there was basically enemy troops on Florida's soil, and they were inciting such panic that massive amounts of people were just flooding to try to get out of the peninsula, to get up and out of South Florida, where it had seemed that massive amounts had come through the Everglades and what I had seen, but they were also already there. They're in many different points. Now, not every person that comes across the border is a sleepy cellular unit, if you can understand what we mean. But even if it's just not even 10%, even if it's just 5%, you're talking an army of hundreds of thousands, an army that is larger than any armies out there, than perhaps the top 3 or 4 countries in the world.
Mm-hmm. It's very concerning. It's sobering.
Super. And it's part, again, of that Trojan horse infiltration that's been ongoing. And I thank the Galactics for that. And then we see V for Vendetta. That's one of the other things. You can't use that particular letter in your title. Even if you're talking about Vendetta, or you're talking about Victory, or you're talking about Vipers.
Right. You can't use it.
Well, there are vipers in charge, aren't there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because we tried to use that, and that wouldn't work either. So we see the big clashes that were going on over in the UK, and many have shared that there's massive clashes that are not really getting a lot of public attention because, again, suppression. You gotta spin. It's all how you sell things. And a lot of times we've seen that where people will say there had to be 250,000 people, and the news will be saying, well, there might have been 10,000. And then in the inverse, making it look where there's so many people cheering for one of theirs. Meanwhile, it's just, half a dozen people and a bunch of crickets.
Right.
But again, that's the sales job that goes on in this world. The illusion. It's all about illusion. Almost 100 people killed after a few tanker collision and blast on busy Sierra Leone street. This is a major accident, obviously. And, we did get from the guys that, this was, an act of terror.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, that's what came through. And this is something that's going to become more and more. We'll see it more and more and more. And that's a shame. So we wish everyone who's been hurt, whoever's lives have been interrupted, for them to have peace and a quick recovery for sure.
Absolutely horrible situation. So yes, our prayers go over to everybody there. And I love Costa Rica. It was always one of my top choices. Somehow we never got there. And then we see this, so even the smallest, one of the smaller countries in the world with no outstanding military. They have no military. Ton of expats. They have fabulous yoga and meditation retreats there. And there's a lot of extremely spiritual people there. And yet, in the system, and that's exactly the type of thing that really can be very, very disheartening for many people. And then we see this, which many people have had visions of something similar. New Ebola outbreak is in the Congo again. 11 cases, 6 dead, 5 months after the previous in the same region. And many people are having visions of something that looks like that. Basically this would go under the classifications of hemorrhagic fever. And many people are seeing or getting the feel that there might be something like this on the global stage in the future. And here again, GAIN of FUNCTION. There was a lot of discussions between a certain senator from Kentucky and a certain Dr. Sicklemaker, who's in the public eye. Why in the world would you ever allow anybody to make something that's bad worse? With the sales, the spin on that is being, again, we have to understand it to beat it. But why would you make it worse? If there's a neighborhood bully that's going around and picking on everybody in the neighborhood, does everybody chip in and get him a great weight set?
Yeah.
And does everybody pay for martial arts, MMA classes for him?
And get him a club or two.
And you get him a club? Oh, let's give him a $1,000 gift certificate over to Dick's Sporting Goods.
Right.
Maybe he'll go and pick up something. And where's the thinking here? There's no logic that covers that. That's just insanity.
Well, unless you look at the logic through the lens of the agenda, then there's plenty of logic.
Yes. Very. This world is run by so many Dr. Frankenstein, so to speak. And the masses of this world need to wake up and just say, we don't believe you. We don't believe you. You're totally illogical. The reasoning that's been given to us doesn't make sense. But basically the bottom line is they don't think that the masses are intelligent enough to understand the deception, and that's so sad. And so many people, unfortunately, maybe it's not intelligence, maybe it's just they're too trusting in the wrong entities.
Well, part of the ego, I think, plays a part in that, because we went to school and we were taught, well, this is who you can trust, this is who you shouldn't trust. We were groomed from a very, very young age to follow along with, society norms. And we got to break out of that. We have to understand that it's not for our benefit, and look to different teachings and learn different things. Times are changing, and we have to open up and realize it, and not be afraid to express yourself and say who you are. I know so many of you feel so alone, because you're the only one that sees, hears, and who's experiencing these things. Your heart chakra is waking up, and you don't really have family members to talk to. Well, talk to them anyway. Maybe they're waiting to be triggered. We don't know. So be yourself.
And here we have a lake in West Africa, once one of the largest lakes in West Africa, now turned into a desert with sand dunes. And think about that. And if there was some big, massive zombie apocalyptical plague upon the land, how quickly everything that we have made would be covered over and just gone. How many times has that happened in the past? And then what if there was a cleanup crew that literally comes out, a cleanup crew of the controllers that comes out and just scans from above, looking for evidence that they could get rid of the past society, and perhaps even planting evidence that leads those that survive and that come later to think of things in terms that are not accurate. And, how many times has this happened? Time and time again. Well, we've gotten that this is something that's happened so many times you almost can't count that high.
Right.
But again, not everybody has to go through this. We always have the opportunity to rise up and above, but it's your personal choices. And if they get you to make the choice to hang with them in the lower vibrations, in the lower astral realms, again, if we've been in our waking state living a 3D life, and we're going into 4D right now, the guides have equated it to basically we have 1 foot in 3D, the other one's about to land in 4D, and we'll be picking up that back foot so that 3D will be something of the past. Well, the lower 4D realm is that realm which is spoken of as basically, not a nice place to be. That's your hellish realm. And that's where these entities call home. And so they've tried to make Earth basically hell on Earth. It's not intended to be that way. This was a gift. The original creation is a gift for consciousness to explore and experience a little bit heavier existence, and that comes with pros and cons. Some of the pros, maybe Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah.
Maybe some nice strawberry cheesecake.
Oh gosh. Oh, you're killing me.
Yeah, or even the smell of coffee in the morning. We take memories, and the memories we do keep with the soul keeps the memories. Typically, when we reincarnate, we lose our remembrance of our past lives and who we were and who we really are. But it doesn't have to be that way. That is kind of a full immersion technique, but it also has to do with where we are spiritually. And as we shared before, when you go to the Mahabharata, and Krishna, who is an incarnation of Vishnu, which is the preserving force and creative force of the universe, he says to Arjuna, who's going to be fighting his cousins and family members in the morning, and he's having a hard time doing that, but Krishna tells him, you have to fight. You might not understand this bigger picture. And this is interesting too, because, here is a person being told you have to fight, because you can't let the darkness envelop everything. You can't let the darkness envelop us all. Now, how does that look? It looks different in each age. It looks different in each situation. But he tells Arjuna, the difference between me and you is I remember my incarnations. I know who I am. When Yeshua said to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, I and my Father are one, they picked up stones to stone him. Because why? Because they didn't have that true spiritual knowledge of the bigger picture. They were under the power structure of this controller dominated, dark energy dominated system. And they didn't really realize they were under that control. And he even said to them, you don't serve my Father, you serve the evil one, the evil ones, those that we call the dark demonic forces. We could also view as extraterrestrials and interdimensionals that are not of a benevolent nature. And they view humanity as a resource. They view humanity as slaves, but we are not slaves, because that which is within us is source itself. And we were never created to be slaves. That's not who we are. It's not who we ever were supposed to be. We're actually powerful co-creative beings. Isn't it not written that it is said that ye are gods? Every single one of us has trillions of beings living in us, viewing us as the universe itself, just as we are living in a much larger being, and we view that being as our universe, as above, so below.
And that rings true. I mean, more than you know. We had a channeling this morning, and we'll do a video on it that really even blew my socks off. It was really amazing, and just going over that information once again, I don't think we can absorb that as above, so below enough. It's on so many levels, and it can be explored in so many ways. And when you really start to get into it and you start to sink your soul into it and have that understanding, it really opens up your heart chakra. It opens up your understanding of things, and you have a more of a vast knowledge of how things work. It's just awesome.
Yes, and as we've shared, everything is so intertangled, and people that are only brought up in one system that haven't gone deep, haven't gone within, they just take verbatim what they've been given. The creator of this universe is an amazingly benevolent being, full of love, light, and of the highest vibration, that it's almost impossible to behold that energy. And it's most definitely not a vindictive, jealous God. That is most definitely the controllers interdicting in there more of their lies and deception. So the original imprint and program is one of love. Source, the true source of everything, is all about love. And that's the beauty, and that's the reality. Everything else that you have that is pushing division and pushing war and hatred and all the negative things we see on this planet, it's part of that control matrix, and it has nothing to do with source, and it has nothing to do with the creator of this universe.
And we definitely always wish to invite anyone to have that deeper understanding and explore for yourself and break outside of those norms, break outside of what you were taught, and get curious about yourself. So that's always such a blessing when you do make your way out of that, and you start to discover yourself.
Dig deeper, guys. Dig much, much, much deeper. Don't just accept what you've been taught by your parents, your teachers, your politicians, your governmental officials, your pastors, your priests, your rabbis. You have to know for yourself.
And
You have to
although,
explore for yourself.
yeah, I'm sorry. Although they're all very, very well meaning, understand that where they got their teachings from, and find your own teachings. So,
Each individual is a unique universe unto themselves. So thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys.
oh, we do want to say thank you to Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary. We appreciate you, brother. And do check out Medicinal Foods. There's a link at the top of every video. We use coupon code EEA to get an extra 5% off your order. Lots of good stuff there as well. Be prepared. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.